Chapter 157 Evolving Spirit Wolf Part 1. Come, call your summoned beast. Lee Junwei represented the team of challengers, his face filled with a sense of pride. As long as your summoned beast isn't a bone corpse demon, I will definitely let you have a taste of my abilities. This guy seems to be the only person we don't have any intel on. We don't know what kind of summoned beast he has. Mo Fan looked at the team of 5 who seemed to be prepared, his face displaying a lazy smile. Although he was also a guy who enjoyed fighting, this was not the time for him. This was the time for the spirit wolf to display its prowess. Fight for me. The moonlight star path emerged in front of Mo Fan and turned into a space crack. A dimensional bridge summoned forth a creature from the unknown plane. From within the dimensional crack, a deep blue head stretched out. Soon after, a robust and mighty body stepped out. The fur-covered body was fluttering in the space crack, and a bestial aura pervaded the whole arena. The spirit wolf instantly became the focal point of the whole chamber. It's a spirit wolf. What a feral aura. This is like a completely different creature compared to the tiny spirit wolf from before. It feels like it's not easy to deal with that. I never thought the last summoner student's summoned beast would be a fully grown, robust spirit wolf. I'm not sure if Lee Junwei and his team can possibly contest that. In the backstage, the 6 summoner students' mouths had dropped open, displaying their astonishment. It looks like it has gotten stronger since the last time, Zhang Yunming murmured to himself. They could hear the sound of the wind. A ferocious wind was rolling around, the spirit wolf in its center. The dust had turned into a golden wave as it washed out, sweeping along the colossal beast battle arena and blowing into the faces of the 5 challengers. For some reason, their legs began to shake. The man in the lead with a big head turned around to look at his leader, Lee Junwei. What's there to be afraid of? It's just a spirit wolf, not a bone corpse demon. Lee Junwei cursed while feeling dissatisfied. I just keep feeling this isn't your average spirit wolf. Feelings my ass. Go kill it. The 5 people were clearly very coordinated with each other. Facing Mo Fan's spirit wolf, they quickly got into formation. The wind users were in the front, water in the back, lightning and fire by the earth user in the center. With all 5 elements in one team, wind, water, lightning, fire, and earth, they formed a very well-coordinated team. Lightning users in the Pearl Institute were not rare, so forming a 5-element team wasn't too difficult. It was obvious that Lee Junwei's team was prepared. If it wasn't for the appearance of Luo Song, they would have attacked one of the summoned beasts by themselves. Now, there was only the very last summoner student, Mo Fan. They naturally would not continue waiting. Big head. Restrict it. Remember, the spirit wolf's burst damage is relatively strong, so you need to be quick when you use flash steps, or else it'll be able to slice you in 2 once you get to the other side, Lee Junwei said with a solemn expression. Yeah, I'll just use wind trails, floating shadow, the big-headed guy in the very front said. Pimples. Just because the spirit wolf is far from us doesn't mean it can't attack us. The spirit wolf has a breath attack. The girl with pimples on her face nodded quickly. All right, let's start. How could a little spirit wolf possibly stop the 5 of us from becoming famous? Let's show those previously unorganized and useless people our coordinated battle strategy. Lee Junwei's face displayed a great smile. Those who treated a battle as a one-on-one conflict could only be deemed unsuitable with others. During the primary level, most of the people would only have a single spell, and so they would have to form a team. Being the chief of the classical elements, the primary lightning spells were indeed very strong, but they definitely did not have the ability to deal with a magical beast by themselves. The water element did not have any attack prowess, but it was the only primary ranked element that had a protective spell, making it one of the most crucial parts of a battle. In Lee Junwei's eyes, there was no element that was trash from the start, only a group of retards who didn't understand how to cooperate. Mo Fan saw the opponent's formation and a smile formed on his face. Interesting. The 5 people's battle experience was in no way inferior to the hunter squad he was a part of back then. Be careful, they should be very knowledgeable. Oh woo? Mo Fan didn't say another word. The spirit wolf let out a domineering howl. The warlike spirit wolf began to attack without a response from Mo Fan. The amount of time it took for the spirit wolf to go from complete stillness to as fast as a cheetah was only a second. This bursting power afoot was not something a one-eyed magic wolf could compare to. The spirit wolf was charging violently. Its objective was precisely the wind member standing at the very front of Lee Junwei's team. Although the big-headed wind member of the group seemed relatively nervous, his steps were still nimble. The third level of wind trails created several wind tunnels in the caster's surroundings, creating a bunch of high-speed wind passages that belonged only to himself. With them in place, he was as lithe as a swallow. Floating Shadow had a much bigger range than Flash Steps. It looked as though there were wind trails everywhere. It made the magician seem like wind, impossible to catch and impossible to pursue. The Spirit Wolf's first attack caught only an empty wind shadow. The big-headed guy had already floated to a location 20 meters away when the Spirit Wolf had attacked with its claw. The sound of the wind was heard again. The Spirit Wolf quickly retracted its claws. His body slid through the ground for a small distance before he once again stood up with his four limbs. He had actually changed the course of his tracks in a single second toward the big-headed wind magician. Second attack. Lee Junwei's face revealed amazement. Normally speaking, when the Spirit Wolf used its full strength to attack, it would take a while to stop. It was just like when a person has used a frantic charge, they would need some time to catch their breath. However, this Spirit Wolf had actually been able to regain its energy right after its first burst attack. Additionally, its speed even remained the same as it began its ferocious attack the second time. Pimple, protect him, quick! Lee Junwei commanded. The Spirit Wolf's second attack was definitely going to cause an enormous threat to the wind magician. After all, the big-headed guy believed he was in a safe zone after only moving around 20 meters away. Numerous water droplets coalesced out of nowhere. They were all in motion, and quickly combined in front of the wind element student to form a water barrier defense. Yet another howl of the wind was heard. The Spirit Wolf saw these water beads as he was halfway there, and his eyes showed a hint of disdain. His heavy claws ferociously smashed towards the wind magician once more. Chapter 158 Evolving Spirit Wolf Part 2. Whoosh! The ferocious claws split open the shield formed by numerous water droplets. The sharp claws streaked right through the body of the wind elemental student. An incredible blood scar emerged on the chest of the wind elemental student. Oh! The wind member of the group fell backward, and the overflowing blood from his body mixed with the dust as it flowed into the distance. How could this be? The eyes of the pimpled girl went wide as they were filled with astonishment and fear. Her water barrier had clearly reached the third level already. Why was it unable to defend against the attack of the Spirit Wolf? She had also been through numerous fights, and she had always been able to defend against all kinds of magical beasts' attacks. You were too slow. You should know how to protect in situations like this next time without me telling you. Lee Junwei said with a gloomy face as he excoriated her. Indeed, the water elemental girl had cast it a bit slow. The Spirit Wolf's claw had already slashed through the wind student's body before the water barrier had been formed. The water barrier that looked as though it was formed in time had only blocked the attack power that came afterward. You bastard, taste my lightning strike. The purple lightning was crackling furiously as they ferociously bombarded the location of the Spirit Wolf. The lightning dazzled their eyes. As the snake-like lightning began to lash across the area, it looked like it had completely surrounded the Spirit Wolf. The Spirit Wolf could smell the ozone in the air. It stomped heavily with its back legs, and its body smoothly jumped to the side. In the next second, the place where the Spirit Wolf had been standing was completely covered by lightning strikes. A patch of burned ground appeared immediately thereafter. Small bits of static were jumping around the Spirit Wolf's deep blue fur, but they didn't pose any threat to it. The Spirit Wolf turned around, its verdant eyes locking onto the person who had unleashed the lightning strike. Ooh ooh! With its head loftily raised, and with its throat that seemed as deep as a cavern, a demonic wind suddenly came forth. The demonic wind began to wantonly sweep across the sands on the surface of the ground, which rose into the air in thick clouds. Shit, is this still flying stones? As Mo Fan saw this scene, he couldn't help but feel shocked. The very first time Mo Fan had seen flying stones, the grains of sand were like a widespread of bullets as they shot toward him. For a normal person, this would leave behind numerous holes in their bodies. However now, the flying stones were being spat by his very own Spirit Wolf. The area of this was more than double the size he had seen it before. It was like the Spirit Wolf had howled out a sandstorm. Hurry up and scatter. Lee Junwei's complexion immediately changed. For something like the flying stones, they could easily evade it by just quickly rolling around. Furthermore, the spirit wolf had used it from a distance. However, against something of this scale that covered a fourth of the entire beast cage, they simply had nowhere to run and could only receive the damage. Lee Junwei slammed both of his hands on the ground as he tried to overcome his shock. Earth wave. Where Lee Junwei was standing, ripples of earth began to spread into the surroundings. The ripple quickly carried Lee Junwei and his lightning and fire comrades to the two sides of the cage. Pimples! Get behind me! Lee Junwei shouted. After pushing his two comrades away, Lee Junwei knew that he couldn't rely on the water element girl to cast the second level of water barrier in such a short amount of time. The water elemental girl ran behind Lee Junwei's back. However, at this moment, the flying stones had already charged over. His cheeks were painfully scratched by those little grains of sand. Vine wall. Lee Junwei moved his intent and activated his own special defensive magic equipment. An azure ray flashed, and multiple strange black rattan vines emerged in front of Lee Junwei. The vines began to intertwine while giving birth to new, thin vines that also integrated into the existing ones. The sandstorm finally came to an end, followed by an ear-piercing sound. If there hadn't been a vine wall in front of Pimples and Lee Junwei, then their weak bodies would definitely have been utterly smashed by the mighty storm. This student is not bad. Dean Xiao watched the dust-filled arena as his face revealed a gratified smile. The face of Zhou Zhenghua, the dean of the Earth School, was also showing a bit of radiance. Just moments before, Luo Song had given the Earth element students a tremendous amount of face. Who would have thought that among the elements, there'd also be someone like Lee Junwei who knew how to cooperate amongst the different elements. Using the Earth Ripple to push the fire and lightning members who didn't have any way of defending themselves to a safe area, and then use his own magic equipment to protect himself as well as the water comrade behind him. The flying stones from the spirit wolf were evidently strong enough to completely annihilate the four of them. However, that was completely prevented by an earth magician, Lee Junwei. There are too many primary earth magicians who didn't know what to do, nor their roles in a battle nowadays. Lee Junwei's display had essentially given a lesson to all the earth magician students who were still completely blank. The earth element could be called the core of a squad. Their ability to move the surface of the ground meant they were the link between the squad members, and would also allow the squad to be much more flexible. Too bad they've lost, Dean Xiao secretly added. The earth element dean, Zhou Zhenghua, was slightly shocked as his gaze locked onto the cage filled with dust. The dust came fast, and settled fast. Lee Junwei's display was indeed very outstanding. However, in front of such formidable power, their strategies and spells were completely useless. Within the yellow mist, an eminent and ferocious silhouette was standing in front of Lee Junwei. The dark green eyes were only a meter away from him as it loomed over Lee Junwei. Lee Junwei and Pimple both raised their heads. The two of them, who had just evaded the sweeping sandstorm, felt like they had been soaked in cold water. Especially Pimples, she looked as though she was going to faint from the scene that greeted her eyes. Third stage burst. Lee Junwei raised his head, his eyes filled with disbelief. He originally didn't want to believe this was an evolving spirit wolf. However, now he was not able to question it anymore. A spirit wolf that could complete a third stage burst was most definitely at the evolved stage. This was a vicious creature that was a half step into the warrior level. The five of them could deal with a normal magical beast without a problem. However, dealing with a creature that was in the evolving stage would only make them seem like children. They could easily get slaughtered. Chapter 159 I Want It All. After the sand had thoroughly dispersed, the entire audience saw an incredibly stunning scene. The spirit wolf that suddenly disappeared was standing right in front of Lee Junwei. Its four limbs were stepping on the vine wall, and its head was only a meter away from Lee Junwei. It signified that if the spirit wolf had any slight desire to kill, then it could easily snap Lee Junwei's head off with its fierce teeth. Come back, the summoner spoke up at that moment. The spirit wolf was clearly very obedient, as it jumped down from the vine wall and returned to the side of Mo Fan without even glancing at the group of challengers. Its slow steps, the haughty rise of its head, and eyes that showed it was not fully satisfied seemed like it was saying, "Humans. Weak. Shu Jiaoting, are you sure you haven't seen him in only a year?" The girl sitting next to Shu Jiaoting asked him in disbelief. Shu Jiaoting himself was even more dumbstruck. Is that person even Mo Fan? Even if that guy was to break into the intermediate levels soon after the destruction of Bo City, it still wouldn't make sense for him to be able to cultivate his newly attained summoning element to this level in just a year's worth of time. The spirit wolf in front of him had easily defeated Lee Junwei's squad of 5, showing it was much stronger than your average magical beast. If their primary vanguard squad had encountered something like this on the road, then they would have been completely annihilated. I also don't know. He always seems to become stronger somehow. Xu Jiaoting realized he just couldn't understand Mo Fan. This person was far too unfathomable. Fuck, that spirit wolf has gotten even stronger. Luo Song, who had wanted to cause trouble for Mo Fan, abruptly swore. Originally, this spirit wolf was nothing to be afraid of. His ice shackles were enough to defeat it. Now, the spirit wolf had reached the evolving stage. If Luo Song didn't completely direct his attention towards it, then there was a chance he might die in its jaws. Furthermore, there was also its summoner, Mo Fan, who possessed intermediate lightning. It seems like I'll have to take the resources of my brothers and sisters, or else the difference will be even larger. Luo Song thought to himself. The faster Mo Fan's strength increased, the more Luo Song didn't feel at ease. He had already lost once against Mo Fan. He definitely could not allow a second time. Li Junwei and his comrades walked out of the iron cage with fallen spirits. This was not the result they wanted. They definitely could have finished off at least one summoned beast. However, they were completely oppressed by an evolving stage summoned beast. This feeling was unbearable. At first, there was an intermediate magician who had heavily shocked all of the students in the audience, and now there was a spirit wolf at the evolving stage. They were simply too strong. Li Junwei had completely experienced the saying of crouching tigers and hidden dragons at Pearl Institute. He wasn't sure what kind of laughingstock he was as he walked out of the beast battle cage, and more about how Qin Xiaomian would view someone like him. Mo Fan, you're way too cool. You made up for the numbers we were missing. The short and thin summoner student called out to Mo Fan up on the stage excitedly. Zheng Bingshao also had a joyous smile on his face. This spirit wolf's strength was definitely not any weaker than the Bone Corpse demon. If Mo Fan was able to ward off attacks from the coming students, then they would definitely be able to keep their resources. Although Hai Dafu and Wang Liting did not like Mo Fan, they still put their hopes on Mo Fan. Even if their faces did not display it, their hearts let out a sigh of relief. You guys are a bit too optimistic. You do know that there's nearly 50 more people before you reach 100. If the squads are comprised of 5 people, then do you think Mo Fan's spirit wolf is capable of dealing with 10 waves of challengers? It seems like that. It's all the annoying guy's fault. Wait until I reach the intermediate level. I will definitely take revenge. Mo Fan turned his head around to glance at the students of the same element as him. To be honest, if the whole resource thing concerned the entire elemental department, then he'd directly leave after finishing off 16 more people. There's nothing he could do. Who could he blame for being poor? He couldn't buy anything, so he came to Pearl Institute to squeeze resources from the teachers and the school. Since the spirit wolf's strength had increased exponentially, then he might as well let it fight until it was satisfied. The spirit wolf could be considered as having escaped from a calamity and then obtaining a fortune. After going through a cruel and brutal battle, the spirit wolf had broken through to the evolving stage. The evolving stage signified the stage of time where the creature evolved from minion class to warrior class. A creature at this stage was far superior to a minion class creature, but also was still a long ways from a warrior class creature. The beast refinement blood was extremely potent for evolving stage creatures. It just happened that they could obtain the beast refinement blood if they displayed their excellence. Obviously, the beast refinement blood wouldn't be enough for the spirit wolf to step into the warrior class. That still required a large amount of resources. In fact, what Dean Xiao had said was extremely grand, and it had stirred many hearts. However, from how Mo Fan saw it, there was an extremely important point in what the old dean had said. The demonstration of the beast battle competition had actually displayed the lifestyle of Pearl Institute. Resources could be plundered. You could forever stand in the back and use your weak gaze to look at other people displaying their prowess on the stage, or you could clench your teeth and increase your own strength so that you could amaze the whole world one day and receive the attention of millions. The more you withdraw, the more you will be forgotten in the corner. The more you are willing to fight, the more you will bask in radiance. Dean Xiao, I have a question. When Mo Fan saw the mass of challengers standing by the exit, he took this little time to loudly ask a question. Speak, Dean Xiao answered promptly. If our summoning school doesn't reach 100 people, then the resources will be given to another elemental school. Isn't that a bit too unfair for us? If we lose, then the resources that belong to us will be given to others. If we win, then all we do is retain the resources that would have already been given to us, Mo Fan asked loudly. After Dean Xiao heard this, he couldn't help but smile. His gaze swept past the deans of the other elements. Mo Fan, that is a very good question. We have actually already considered this. Once you've reached 100 people, there will be another reward. If a summoning student can withstand the attack of 200 people, then all of the resources that would be distributed to all of the other elemental schools will be given to the summoning school. Dean Xiao replied in a loud voice. After this was said, the colossal arena began to erupt. All these people knew was that if the summoning school did not reach their objectives, then they would receive a huge penalty. However, what they didn't know was that if they were to defeat 200 students of other elements, then the resources that belonged to every other school except for the summoning school would belong to them. Shit, just how colossal would the resources be if the 10 or so element schools were put together? The summoning school had very few people, only 7 of them. The students of other elements together totaled at least 4,000 people. The resources of 4,000 people would be in the hands of the 7 people of summoning school. Wouldn't the summoning school essentially be in paradise? The reason we didn't announce this rule is because there hasn't been a single new student in all these years who has been able to do something like this. Thus, it didn't really matter. Dean Xiao said with a gentle smile. Dean, even I didn't know about this. The earth element Dean, Zhou Zhenhua, spoke up with a bitter expression. The deans of the other elements all looked at each other. The younger element Dean really did not know that there was this kind of shocking rule after the first. Alright, I've answered your question. Do you have anything else you'd like to ask? Dean Xiao continued. I don't have a question, Mo Fan replied. He had a subtle calm before, but in the next second, his face slowly displayed a tiny smile. However, I just want to make a statement toward the students of all elements. Make a statement? The 5,000 or more new students didn't know what this summoning student wanted to do. I burn more resources compared to your average magicians. Thus, I'm sorry. Mo Fan slowly cupped his fist as he bowed to them. Your resources will belong to me. When Mo Fan raised his head once more, he took off his innocent mask and put on an incredibly arrogant face. Chapter 160 Reason to be Arrogant. The atmosphere seemed to have frozen. The expressions of 10,000 teachers and students from the whole school were frozen at this time, too. What kind of talk was this? This brat, is he freaking crazy? Dean Xiao mentioned it before, not a single person had been able to pull this off in all these years. How dare you, a small little summoner student, dare to be so arrogant? What right do you have to not put the 4,000 to 5,000 new students in your eyes? There were still many old students at the Azure campus. Among them were magicians who have already been at the campus for 3 or 4 years, and they were now staring at the new student who had provoked the entire school. This caused them to lose their senses for a long time. You want to act? Who can't do that? You should first take a look at the situation of your summoner school. You haven't even reached 50 people, and now you're telling me you're going to get to 200? You want to get rid of 150 people by yourself? The evolving stage spirit wolf is indeed very impressive. Its combat prowess is much higher than your average magical beast. However, it is simply impossible for you to defeat 150 challengers from other elements with just that. Damn. Did you have to be that arrogant? Not even I dared to say those words. Luo Song blurted out, his face extremely ugly. Originally, Luo Song was definitely going to be the main character of the day. There would have been many people revering him after the competition. In the end, Mo Fan's sentence directly provoking all of the elements in the school had caused Luo Song's actions today to seem like nothing. If it was possible to enter the arena for a second time, then Luo Song would be the first person to battle Mo Fan to death. Damn. I hate these kinds of people who believe they're unfathomable. So what if you have an evolving stage spirit wolf? Brothers, let's go, let's destroy it. A new student with a rather explosive temper stood up as he hurriedly rushed toward the iron cage. He really does not know his place. A couple of subtle eyes flashed with ridicule. Pearl Institute was definitely a place where hidden dragons and crouching tigers existed. Just minutes ago, Luo Song, an intermediate magician, had emerged. There would definitely be more people than Luo Song who had reached the intermediate level. There had been occasional intermediate magicians emerging among the new students in Pearl Institute in the past. They would naturally not participate in things like the beast battle competition. However, when a summoner student said things like that, did he really think those hidden experts would calmly let him fight with clowns and show off his prowess? Mo Fan stood in the middle of the arena and heard the swearing coming from all seats of the audience. There were more than 10,000 people in this battle area. No matter where he looked in this place, he was facing at least 1,000 people. Their voices were coming at him like thunder from all sides. It was an unprecedented feeling. However, since this was a decision he had made, Mo Fan would definitely fight each one of them until the very end. Ms. Tang Yue was not wrong. For someone like Mo Fan, who had an innate dual element, if he did not have a colossal amount of resources, then it'd be just like doing things half-assed and achieving nothing. If the little Loach pendant hadn't absorbed the underground holy spring, then Mo Fan definitely would not be able to take care of all 4 of his elements. Even after he obtained such an exquisite treasure, Mo Fan still felt like he was incredibly poor. To use the spirit wolf as an example, the animal had already reached the evolving stage. Could he really let a summoned beast that was capable of reaching the warrior class remain stuck at that level? No. Then he would have to obtain resources that could allow the spirit wolf to successfully break into the warrior class. A small beast refinement blood was definitely not going to be enough. Doing things like this looked like he was being impulsive. However, there was such an incredible opportunity being laid in front of him. An opportunity that allowed him to take the resources of over 4,000 new students for himself. Was it even possible for him to not even attempt to strive for it, and let it slip by in front of him? If he lost, then he would at most have been cursed at a few times. You don't die from being cursed at, so who cared? If he won, then his bowl would be completely filled up. Perhaps even the disciples from those major families in other powers wouldn't be able to sit on any resources. Spirit Wolf, don't you love fighting? Today, the 2 of us will fight until we're satisfied. Come, give me all you've got. Mo Fan's gaze swept past the vast crowd of people. The feeling of being surrounded by the gaze of 10,000s of people was just mad. I will go and beat him until his own mom won't recognize him. Make his spirit wolf into a soup. Damn, how dare he be more arrogant, wild, and shameless in front of me. Long Aocean. Translator note. Long Aocean's name in Chinese basically means the heavenly arrogant dragon. I'm the cure for all kinds of braggarts. A large crowd of students began to appear by the arena entrance. Mo Fan's words had instantly sent 5,000 or so new students into a rage. Perhaps there would still be many who were afraid of Mo Fan's evolving stage spirit wolf before, but now everyone wanted to rush to the stage. If not, then it would signify that their elements did not have a single strong person. Soon enough, 5 people entered the arena. Their faces were filled with anger. It was evident that they couldn't endure his words. They've seen those who stole resources. However, they'd never seen anyone who stole the resources of new students when they had only just been admitted. He must be tired of living. HMPH, it's merely an evolving stage spirit wolf. It's not a warrior. Shit! Before Long Aocean could finish his words, the spirit wolf burst out at fearsome speed. With a single swipe of his paw, he reached Long Aocean and sent him flying. He had a piece of defensive magic equipment, but the force of impact still sent him flying over 5 meters away. After collapsing, he was no longer able to get up. His comrades watched all that in awe. When they were watching this from the audience, the spirit wolf's speed didn't seem this incredible. However, after facing it, its speed was actually more than just double. They really are a group of people with a temper. Mo Fan looked at these people, unable to help himself from thinking it was funny. I'm an intermediate magician, and that's why I dared to make this bet. You guys are like a bunch of fools compared to Li Junwei's squad, and yet you still dare to come up here and be a disgrace? The spirit wolf didn't mess around as it pursued the remaining people. If Mo Fan hadn't instructed the spirit wolf to be lenient from the beginning, then they wouldn't just lose their arms and legs. Who knew if their lives would still be intact? After sending those people off, the next wave quickly came forth. Mo Fan just stood there without moving. His spirit wolf could easily deal with the abundance of students who let their emotions take control of their actions. However, Mo Fan refused to believe that Pearl Institute only had trash. He was just waiting there, waiting for a true expert to appear.